What's going on, everybody? And welcome to the First and Foremost Sports Podcast. This is episode 43. I am your host, Jimmy Covington.
I am the one and only Quentin Douglas. What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, Quinn? How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, Jimmy. How about you, bro?
I can't complain. Been chilling on the day off, man.
Man, must have been nice. I had a pretty long day today, but hey, it's already Wednesday, so close to the weekend.
Oh yeah. Let's go ahead and get it started here. We got a few topics for y'all on deck today. So Quinn, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So on Monday, via JJ Watt's Twitter page, he announced that he was signing with the Arizona Cardinals. The deal was two year, $31 million deal with $23 million guaranteed. Quentin, does this move make the Arizona Cardinals championship contenders?
Man, in my opinion, no, not really. Man, for one, you gotta take into consideration the NFC West ain't no joke. In my opinion, AFC North makes a strong argument, but it's arguably the best division in football or that the NFL has to offer. But you know, the Cardinals defense really wasn't that great last year. They were okay against the pass, and they were actually 22nd against the run. In six of their games, they actually gave up 120 plus rushing yards. And for a team that considers itself, with a move like this to be in a Super Bowl window, I don't think you can really, expect to make a deep playoff run if your defense is that atrocious. Um, and as far as JJ Watt moving the needle and getting them over the hump, I just don't think he's that caliber of player anymore. Uh, Nonetheless, he's definitely still a great player. But at his peak, JJ Watt was a guy each year he was a threat to get 20 sacks. He was batting down 5, 6 balls every year, forcing so many fumbles. And I mean, just every play seems like he was just living in the backfield. But whether it be the injuries, just the lack of talent around him, he just really hasn't been the same player in maybe about 4 or 5 seasons now. Because even last 5 seasons, he's only played a total of 48 games. And considering too that he's a defensive lineman, you can only expect that he might get banged up this year again. But I think there were a lot of factors that went into why he chose Arizona. For one, Jess was teammates with DeAndre Hopkins in Houston. So I know he was in his ear constantly, like, "Come on, bro, pastures are green over here in Arizona." And then Vance Joseph is actually their defensive coordinator, and he coached JJ Watt his first 3 years in the league in Houston. So there's definitely a level of familiarity there in those aspects. And he actually said in his press conference that he as a player believes in Kyler Murray's abilities. And I really think that's the biggest factor in all of this. If Kyler Murray is able to take that next step and put himself in the upper echelon of quarterbacks and be a superstar, I think with him playing at that level, yeah, it'd be pretty hard to beat that team. They're a tough team to beat now. They're no easy out. But, like I said, they need him to step up, and they have a array of other needs too. They're gonna have to look at their secondary. They got a lot of independent free agents, specifically at corner. They still need pass rushing help, in my opinion. Hassan Reddick, he's an independent free agent. Marcus Golden's a free agent. So just some depth up front on that D line is gonna be imperative. And then also, I think on offense, they're gonna need a consistent number two receiver because Larry Fitzgerald isn't getting any younger, which we saw that last year. And then Christian Kirk, he just wasn't that guy. He disappeared some games. So considering those aspects, I don't consider them to be a Super Bowl contender. And my book right now, they're still probably third or fourth best team in the NFC West. So I don't think they'll be Super Bowl contenders. This move just, really didn't move the needle for me.
When I saw the decision, I immediately thought he's just joined the worst team in their own division. I think they are the third or fourth best team in the division, even with the addition of J.J. Watt. You mentioned, some of the starters that they're going to lose. They're going to lose 5 starters due to free agency. Patrick Peterson, Devondre Campbell's an inside linebacker, Marcus Golden, and Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick had 12 sacks and 6 tackles and 6 forced fumbles last year. They also losing Drake Kirkpatrick, at corner, and they didn't have much cap space to begin with, and they just paid him $31 million. So that's going to be a problem. Definitely, you mentioned they need help, offensively in terms of a number 2 receiver. Kenyan Drake he's also a free agent. Got one of their starting guards, J.R. Sweezy. He's also a free agent. So they got to have some needs, and they just paid J.J. Watt a lot of money. He's not, like you mentioned, he's not the same guy that he was 4 or 5 years ago, and that's mainly due to injury. Last year, he only had 5 sacks, and I think that's more so due to the lack of talent outside of him on the defensive line. But I still don't expect him to be the guy that he was 3 or 4 years ago. And let's not forget Chandler Jones he's 30, and he's also coming off a major injury. So, it remains to be seen what he's going to be like coming back. Now, they do have some talent, though. They have, like I said, they have Chandler Jones, have Buda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, who really came on late. And like I said, possibly Patrick Peterson, if they can bring him back. I don't know what they do if they don't bring him or Drake Kirkpatrick back, but it remains to be seen. But
probably
like you
draft
mentioned,
somebody.
Yep, for sure. But you mentioned Vance Joseph. Like you said, he was his coach his first 3 years with Houston, and they run the same scheme, 3-4 scheme. He'll be playing the same position essentially. So there's some familiarity there in terms of scheme wise. But honestly, I think when it comes to these decisions, I don't believe, like, a lot of times the media thinks about, I think they think about strictly football. And I don't think this was just a strictly football decision. I mean, Arizona is one of the 9 states that doesn't have state tax. I think they went into it. His wife is a professional athlete as well. I think that goes into it. So they can train in Arizona during the offseason. So I think a lot of that goes into it. J.J. Watt is a first ballot Hall of Famer. So in my book, I feel like being a Hall of Famer is more important than, I wouldn't say more important. I think, being a Hall of Famer is the highest individual accolade that you can receive as a football player. And I put that even, over winning a Super Bowl because, some guys just don't get lucky. So I believe, if I was J.J. Watt, I would have followed the money as well. I mean, football players have a limited window. The average career is only 3.5 years. He's managed to play, 3 times that number, and he's made a lot of money along the way. So, like I said, continue getting the check, continue, balling out. Hopefully he has a resurgence of a season. He's one of the best defensive linemen of all time. Definitely, one of the best, if not the best defensive lineman of our generation. But, like I said, I thought he would maybe go to Green Bay or Buffalo. But like we both mentioned, Green Bay didn't really have the cap space. And Buffalo, it would have been a nice place to go. Definitely would have, they would have fit him. But I think JJ Watt made what decision he felt was best for him and his family.
Yeah, and I think even there were some teams, the Browns had their hat in the circle. The Indianapolis Colts were in the mix, and even I saw the Tennessee Titans threw up my offer. So I mean, in my opinion, at least 2 of those teams, I would probably take over the Arizona Cardinals as far as who's closer to a Super Bowl contender. Uh, but like you said, those off the field factors definitely played a part. And you piggybacked on it. Even like I said with DeAndre Hopkins, recruiting him, I'm pretty sure a lot of that was, the atmosphere that they have within the franchise. I'm pretty sure, they got Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's a player's coach. They had a toxic environment in Houston. And, I just feel like that definitely played a huge factor in deciding where he wanted to play because essentially, they just didn't want him in Houston anymore. After all he done for that franchise, and their city, which, is once again just a reminder that the NFL is a business. Um, but, hopefully he can find his resurgent self this year. It'll definitely be a scary tandem with him and Chandler Jones if they're both at least even close to full strength. So I think the Cardinals will definitely be a team to keep an eye out on.
And I want to say since 2011, Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt are number one and number two in sacks. I think Chandler Jones has 97 and a half, 97 and a half, and J.J. Watt has 95 since 2011. So if they can return to form, they don't even have to be, previous from that. If they're 80% of what they normally are, the Cardinals are going to be a team to contend with, especially in NFC West.
But, yeah. I think I actually saw, like, statistic wise, they would be the most accomplished duo, like, in NFL history.
That definitely sounds about right. Those are two amazing players, and I'm excited to see the NFC. The NFC West year in and year out is always arguably the best division in football, and it just got a little harder to win there. But let's go ahead and move on to our next. Go ahead and move on to our next topic here. NBA All-Star Weekend is this weekend. Actually, I think it's one day actually this time around.
Yep.
Obviously, some players expressed some disdain for it. Felt like it wasn't necessary, but here we are. We're having it anyway. Of course, every year with All-Star, there are snubs in each conference. And Quinn, so let's go ahead and start here. In Eastern Conference, who was your All-Star snubs for the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, man, my biggest all-star snub was easily Domantas Sabonis. I really don't get the disrespect, especially considering he was just selected to an all-star team last year. But the Pacers, if I'm not mistaken, they're currently they've actually slipped to ninth, but even from the jump, they've been right in the mix of those East teams for their fourth or fifth spot, and that's without T.J. Warren, that's without Karis LeVert. They've had some people in and out with injuries. I think even Jeremy Lamb was out for a bit of time. But Domantas Sabonis, he's been averaging 21, 11, and 6, and probably behind Nikola Jokic. You can make the argument he's the second best big man passer in the league. Just what he brings to that team, especially on the offensive end, is invaluable. And I feel like partially it's because he's in a small market, but excuse me, he definitely doesn't get the respect that I feel he deserves.
But I'm still gonna go big for mine, and I was thinking Bam Adebayo should have got in over Nikola Vucevic. Domantas Sabonis did get in. He's because of injury, of course, to Kevin Durant. But he should have been an outright selection.
Technically, he was snubbed.
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to him getting in, but I picked Bam over Nikola Vucevic. Bam Adebayo averaging a career high in minutes, field goals made per game, field goals attempted per game, free throws made a game, free throws attempted per game, free throw percentage, assists per game, and points per game. He's averaging 19, 10, and 5, shooting 56% from the field and almost 85% from the free throw line. He's up almost 15, 16%. The Miami Heat have been hit hard with COVID and injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of players have missed a lot of games. Jimmy Butler's missed 14 games. Tyler Herro's missed 11. Goran Dragic has missed 14. And Avery Bradley has missed 25 games. And they were still able to stay afloat. They're currently 7th in the Eastern Conference, and they were 10-5 during the month of February. So they've definitely picked it up. But I definitely would have liked to see Bam get it. I think he was snubbed. But not to say Nikola Vucevic, he's having a career year as well, career high in points, field goals, 3-point percentage, 3-pointers attempted per game, 3-pointers made per game, and free throw percentage. He's averaging almost 25, 12, and 4. So he's played extremely well. But the Orlando Magic are 14th in the Eastern Conference. They're currently 13-22. And I think winning should be a part of the formula, because there's a lot of guys who've put up bad numbers on terrible teams, put up great numbers on terrible teams, excuse me. And I think Bam is putting up great numbers on a playoff team. So I would have liked Bam to get the nod over Nikola.
Yeah, I definitely think Miami is a good example, which this is a crazy year anyway, but Miami is they're one of those teams this year where their record definitely doesn't indicate, how good they really are. But I expect once they get healthy, they get some chemistry down the stretch in this second half of the season, they'll still be a force to be dealt with when it's all said and done. But another guy and which you brought up a good point we talked earlier about with these snubs who would you take off of them and I was gonna say Tobias Harris because he's been balling this year for Philly. Philly's number one in the East, of course, and he's averaging 20 and 7, and he's actually just one percentage away on free throws from being a 50, 40, 90 scorer. So, like I said, he's definitely been balling this year. He's definitely been way more consistent than he was for the 76ers last year. And I think they've kind of accepted that he's their true number two scoring option. So I think that combination of all those factors have kind of helped his game flourish more this season.
Definitely. Tobias has been balling now. It's a lot of guys that have taken a step up this year. Not, like I said. But Quinn, let's move on to the Western Conference here.
Mm. Well, I was gonna say Devin Booker, but similar to Sabonis, he was put in as a replacement. But it just really, really baffled me that Devin Booker wasn't selected as an all-star at all. Mind you, his teammate Chris Paul was. Now I know you may be thinking, well, Devin Booker has better stats. Um, I'm like, are you serious? He's their clear-cut number one guy. Um, I guess you now say CP3 is their leader, but in my opinion, that's still Devin Booker's team. So, I don't see how Chris Paul was voted in as an all star at the expense of Devin Booker. If anything, I believe they both should have been an all star. But, even with that, if you want to leave in Chris Paul and Devin Booker, I don't know who else you take out.
For me, it was easy. I'm taking out Zion Williamson. He's averaging 25 and a half, 7 boards, 3 assists. But the Pelicans are 11th in the Western Conference. The Phoenix Suns currently sit at second. Devin Booker is averaging 25 points, almost 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. A career high in field goal percentage, shooting over 50% from the field. Like I said, if you're going to replace, I don't think you take out Chris Paul and put in Devin Booker. I think you take out Zion and put in Devin Booker. Zion, like I said, he's played great, but his team isn't excelling. He's put up, like I said, he's put up 25 and 7, but they're not even in the top 10 in the Western Conference. So, winning has to be part of the formula, like I mentioned earlier. And Devin Booker's also putting up great numbers. So I think that alone gives him the nod, and he should have deserved a selection outright, not because of injury.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, that brings up the question, how much of a factor does winning play into it? Because, I mean, too, you have guys, which I don't think the Pelicans have dealt with it, but, like we talked about with the Heat, with Bam, he's been putting up numbers. Their record hasn't been great, but, they've had guys out with injuries. So, like you said, there's no reason Devin Booker should have been left out. That was inexcusable. And it wasn't technically really a snub, but definitely Luka Doncic shouldn't have been a starter over Damian Lillard. That shouldn't have happened.
Not at
That
all.
should not have happened.
And Luka even came out and spoke about it. So that lets you know Dame
Yeah,
definitely should have been an all-star
Dame,
starter.
Dame's been going crazy this year.
But my thing, what my thing is, the coaches select the reserves. So my thing is, why are the coaches for the second year in a row? Why have the coaches basically disrespected Devin Booker like he's not one of the best guards in the Western Conference, not one
Yeah,
of the
that
best
was
players
two
in the
years
West?
in a row.
So, that's what is their quarrel with Devin Booker? He's a tremendous player, and now they're winning games. I can see you saying he's putting up great numbers for a terrible team, but now they're second in the Western Conference. So what's the excuse this year?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't get what the deal is, especially with how the voter system is set up. It's always a different excuse for somebody or just no excuse. But I mean, like you said, in Devin Booker's case, that was just straight up disrespect. And I don't know, something's gonna be there's gonna have to be some changes made to the voting system, in my
Definitely,
opinion.
definitely. And even LeBron immediately came out and said he's the most disrespected player in the league, and I wholeheartedly agree with LeBron.
I wouldn't say most disrespected, but yeah, he's up there. He's definitely up there.
But let's go ahead and move on to our last topic here. We're still sticking with the NBA, but as All-Star break ends over the weekend, starts the second half of the season, and that's the home stretch going into playoff time. So by now, they've played about 30, 35, 36 games. So teams are starting to run into shape. So, now we're going to talk about our Western and Eastern Conference championship contenders and pretenders. So, Quinn, who are your contenders for the Western Conference championship, and who are your pretenders in the Western Conference?
Yep. So, starting with the Western Conference, in my opinion, right now, I think, which we thought was the case last year, but I think it's either going to be Clippers or Lakers representing the West in the finals. I just think when they're fully healthy and the marbles are going to be on the table, I think those are going to be the two best teams. But, you have your Suns who have came on hot this year. Uh, the Spurs, they're up there. The Trailblazers, even despite their injuries, they have a really good record. And of course, the Utah Jazz currently number one. But out of those teams, if I had to go with surefire contenders, in my opinion, I'm going with Lakers and Clippers. The Suns for me, I don't see them beating either one of those teams in a 7-game series. I just don't see them holding up physically. Especially they have to have guys who will guard Kawhi and Paul George on one team, or you got LeBron and AD on the other team. I just don't see it happening. And then the Spurs, they're always gonna be up there. They're a well coached team. DeMar DeRozan, I feel he could make an argument. He's one of the more disrespected players in the league. Dude's a bucket. But even the Trailblazers, they're a team with a lot of experience. They got Dame and CJ. Is CJ, you know how much longer he's gonna be out?
That I don't know.
Okay, yeah. But if he can get back and be healthy for the playoffs, you can never count out the Trailblazers and even the Nuggets if they can, find some consistency late in the season. Because they're lingering around in the 7th spot right now. If they can kind of climb their way up, they'll probably be my team that I take to beat either of those LA teams in a 7-game series. I just don't see Utah or Phoenix pulling it off.
For me, for the Western Conference, it's clear cut. The Lakers and the Clippers. A starting five with the Lakers, a starting five of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, KCP, Dennis Schroeder, and Gasol have a 25.2 net rating. That's tremendous. Think about it. 0 is the standard, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Anything above that is tremendous. And they have a 25 net rating. They're elite on both ends of the floor. Obviously, shooting hasn't been up to par, but with LeBron and AD, they can overcome all of that. My only question with the Lakers is Anthony Davis' health, his health, long-term health. That's my only question. But if Anthony Davis is healthy, the Lakers have to be the overwhelming favorites. I don't see who would even stand a chance. And I like the Clippers too. I actually picked the Clippers to come out of the Western Conference last year. I don't think no team has their length, their athleticism, and the amount of battle-tested veterans on the wing. They got Kawhi, PG, Pat Bev, Nicholas Batum, Ibaka, and Marcus Morris are all solid to elite defenders, and I would say they're probably the most switchable team on defense in the NBA. A starting five of Kawhi, PG, Nicholas Batum, Ibaka, and Pat Bev has a 23.3 net rating with a 96.7 defensive rating. So with defensive ratings, the lower number, the better, and 96.7 is tremendous. My biggest question is are their stars going to show up come playoff time? Up until last year when it came to Kawhi Leonard, we had no questions about his resume when it comes to balling in crunch time. Paul George, last couple of years, we've had major questions with him, especially last year. But like I said, Kawhi choked too in the playoffs against Denver. So my biggest question, will they show up come playoff time? And I think they will. So for my pretenders, I only have one pretender in the Western Conference, and that's the Utah Jazz. I mean, they have the best record in the league. They're shooting the three ball historically great. They play great team defense. They have great role players. You got Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley Jr., Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, who is my sixth man of the year so far, Derek Favors, Royce O'Neal, Georges Niang, and the names and go on. But when it comes to playing the Lakers and the Clippers, who on that team is going to guard PG and Kawhi if they're playing the Clippers? And if they're playing the Lakers, who is going to guard LeBron and AD? And they don't have an answer for that. Nope. It's simple.
No answer.
They don't have it. We've seen great teams in the regular season over the last 5-6 years. The Raptors come to mind. The Atlanta Hawks come to mind.
You know what? I was just about to say the Jazz are pretty much kind of like the Raptors of the Western Conference.
They come to mind immediately, and they simply weren't able. They didn't have enough to get it done when it comes to the big dogs. And I think that's another thing. Remember early in the season, Shaq told Donovan Mitchell that they couldn't do it, and people took that to heart, saying Shaq was hating. But that wasn't the case at all. Shaq was just trying to motivate him. But I think Shaq knows they can't beat the Lakers or the Clippers in 7. Let's be honest here. If they did,
I think a lot of us know.
they would definitely surprise me if they did. But I definitely think Utah Jazz are a pretender. I think they're just like the Milwaukee Bucks have been in past years. They've been great in the regular season, but come playoff time, I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough to get it done to beat the top dogs.
No, I don't think so either.
But let's move on to the Eastern Conference here, Quinn. Who are your contenders for the Eastern Conference, and who are your pretenders in the Eastern Conference?
Man, Eastern Conference, I think really and truly is only one surefire contender. And for me, it's the Brooklyn Nets. Even when it's been Kyrie and Harden holding down the ship, the Nets have been firing on all cylinders, especially offensively. I mean, what those guys can do on the court, especially one-on-one, it's pretty much virtually unguardable. And then you add KD to the mix when healthy. I just don't see how anybody in the East can beat that in a 7-game series, especially if you got to outscore them. But the biggest question is for them come playoff time, are the players going to be available, specifically Kyrie and KD, and are they going to play defense? Those are definitely the biggest question marks for me. Are they going to be able to buy in when it truly matters in crunch time? And then, too, Steve Nash, first year head coaching, what's he going to be like coaching in a playoff atmosphere? So those will be some interesting dynamics to keep an eye on. And then after the Nets, which I think after them is pretty much everybody else down here, I think the next best team in the East this year is the 76ers. I take them over the Bucks this year. But, similar issues with both teams. I don't trust their superstars down the stretch in the fourth quarter. You really need them most, especially for one, Ben Simmons, still, lack of an outside jump shot. And then Embiid, is he gonna be consistent, that dominant, aggressive force you need down in the post for an entire 4 quarters? Because even this year, a good majority of his points in his games come in the first half. So in a close playoff game, like in a game 6 or game 7, when you're out there running on fumes, you know, what kind of player is he going to be? Is he still going to be effective? And then Boston, they battled some injuries. You know, Kemba's been out. Tatum said he's still feeling the effects of COVID, so he's still working his way back into the mix. And then now you got Marcus Smart out, who you know is essentially the equivalent to Draymond Green in terms of what he brings to that Celtics team. So I just don't see them up there on the next level either. So, like I said, in the East for me, it's the Nets and then everybody else.
I actually have two contenders in the Eastern Conference. First is Brooklyn, obviously. They have Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden. That's all you need right there. My only thing with
Nasty.
them, my only problem with them is the defense and the lack of proven role players. So if those guys struggle, the off chance they struggle, how do they win games? But I think when you got guys that are as consistent offensively as Kyrie, James Harden, and KD, I don't think you're necessarily gonna have an off night offensively. All of those guys can go get you 60. They can go get you 50 any night. All of those guys can carry your team offensively. So I don't have a problem with them at all.
Right.
My second contender for the Eastern Conference is Philadelphia. Right now, I have Joel Embiid as the MVP, as my MVP right now. Ben Simmons is looking like the best defensive player in basketball. I honestly believe he's the best defensive player in basketball. Can guard the 1 through the 5 effectively. Tobias Harris is excelling as their third star and at their second scorer. They have good shooters. Seth Curry, Danny Green, and Shake Milton. Those guys can all shoot the three well. So I think they have the makings of a team that could possibly challenge Brooklyn. So I definitely see them as a contender. Now, I only have one pretender for the Eastern Conference, and it's been the same pretender I've seen for the last 3-4 years, and it's the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis's game is still the same. And one of my big questions for them is who's going to guard the opposing team's best player, especially if he's a wing player. Giannis showed you last year that he's not going to do it. I know you know. I know you didn't forget that press conference where they asked why didn't he guard Jimmy Butler, and it kind of seemed like he had got an attitude about the question. And it seems like he doesn't want to guard the best team's opposing player, especially if they're playing on the wing. And Giannis is not guarding KD. Let's call it. He can't guard KD. Let's call it what it is. Can't guard James Harden. I don't even think he can guard Joel Embiid, to be completely honest, which I think Joel Embiid is a little too strong. He's a little too
Nah, he's
skilled.
probably better suited for power forward.
Exactly. So, who's going to guard the opposing team? I know Chris Middleton's not going to do it. So who's going to guard the opposing team's best player? And also,
maybe Drew Holiday.
But he's 6'3".
Which
What can he
he only effective to a certain extent.
What can he do when it comes to guarding Kevin Durant? There's nothing he can do. He's 6'3", 6'4". Can't guard Kevin Durant. I don't even think and with guys like James Harden and Kyrie, even then you can't stop them. You can only contain them a little bit, make it tougher for them to score. But I don't think they have enough. And also, my other question for Milwaukee is who closes games for them? They still don't have a closer. I don't consider Chris Middleton their closer. As much as I love Drew Holiday as a player, I don't necessarily think he's a closer. And we know Giannis is not a closer. So those are three major questions I have. Two major questions I have.
Dante DiVincenzo.
Those are two major questions that I think prevent them from being true contenders in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And even with the 76ers, I don't think they're contenders. But I will give them that they're definitively the second best team in the East. And another underrated aspect that's really making a difference for them this year is that Doc Rivers is a coach. He's battle tested. He's won a championship. And coaching was really, really lacking with Brett Brown in town. I just think those players just didn't really take heed to what he had to say and his coaching style and how he led the team. And so I think that's definitely made a huge difference for them this year.
Definitely. Their championship experience doesn't get talked about enough. And, I think if anybody can lead those guys to the promised land and get them to buy in like they have this year, I think it was Doc Rivers, and he's been able to do that Whatever Joel Embiid did in the
Yeah.
offseason, whatever Joel Embiid did in the offseason, he needs to continue to do for years to come. Because, like I said, right now he's my MVP.
Yeah, I mean, literally, he's getting the best out of all those players. Embiid, Simmons, even Harris, they're all balling.
And it's no surprise with Tobias Harris because when Tobias Harris last year with the Clippers, he was playing the best ball of his career, and Doc
Yep,
Rivers was
sure
able to tap it.
was.
Doc Rivers was able to tap into that, and he's able to tap into it again. He's got Ben Simmons is a monster defensively, and we saw when Joel Embiid out, we saw what he can do offensively too when Joel Embiid is out. They're definitely a contender.
And they, of course, they got a few more shooters this year too. So definitely keep an eye out on Philly, especially if they can hold some defense against Brooklyn. That might be a good 6-7 game series.
Definitely, and I'll be all here for it.
Yeah. I'm always here for a good competitive series.
Oh yeah. Quinn, is there anything else you want to add?
Man, not really. Just of course, I appreciate everybody for continuing to tune in with us, continuing to support us. Social media. We got Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Continue to subscribe. You can also leave reviews, leave comments. So definitely feel free to continue to show your support for the show.
Now, let me go ahead and shout out the social media pages just so people know. So for Instagram, it's first and foremost _sports. And I'll say that again. For our Instagram, it's first and foremost _sports. And for our Twitter page, it is first _foremost and the number 8 behind it. And I'm saying it again, first _foremost 8. Follow us on Twitter. Have a Facebook group called the First and Foremost Sports Podcast. Like I said, leave comments, leave reviews, or wherever you listen. Leave comments on YouTube, like our videos, share our videos, continue to support us. And, we appreciate y'all for all the support that you have shown us and will continue to show us going forward. But this is the First and Foremost Sports Podcast, episode 43. I'm your host, Jimmy Covington.
And I am the one and only Quentin Douglas. Appreciate y'all.
And we're out here. All right. Thank y'all.
All right.
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more full videos or clips like this, subscribe to our YouTube page at First and Foremost Sports Podcast. Thank you.